Hey everyone. So we're digging into this really interesting paper from NVIDIA Research today, and it basically questions something we've all kind of taken for granted in AI. It really does. I mean, for what feels like forever, the motto has been bigger is better, right? Just cram in more parameters, more data, more everything. But maybe that's not the full picture.
Totally, and that leads to the big question we're tackling here. In AI, does size really matter? Because this paper, it makes this pretty wild claim that for the next big thing, AI agents, the future might actually be small.
Which, let's be honest, sounds completely backwards.
I know. So yeah, let's break down why this is even a debate to begin with.
All right, so first things first, the current landscape. I mean, it seems like AI agents are everywhere right now. Everyone's talking about them, everyone's building them. And we're not just talking about chatbots. These are the AIs that actually do stuff, use tools, run workflows, the whole 9 yards. And if you pop the hood on pretty much any of them, you're going to find the exact same engine, a huge general-purpose large language model. We're talking the biggest, baddest models out there.
Yeah, and this isn't some tiny corner of the tech world. The money and the growth projections are, well, they're insane. You're looking at a market that's already over $5 billion in 2024, and it's projected to blow up to almost $200 billion in the next 10 years.
Wow. So, to put it mildly, there's a massive financial bet being placed on this specific approach to AI.
Right. And that entire bet, all of that cash, all that R&D, it all rests on this one single idea, that you have to have these giant, power-guzzling, super expensive large language models, the LLMs, to be the brains of the operation. That's just the way it's done. It's the standard.
It was the standard, and that's what this paper comes in and flips the table.
So, let's get into the controversial part. The paper basically says that for the vast majority of tasks these agents are doing, we don't need those huge models. In fact, it argues that small language models, or SLMs, aren't just an option. They're actually the future.
Okay, hold on. We need to define our terms here, because small could mean anything, right?
Exactly, and I love the way the paper defines it. It's super practical. They don't get bogged down in counting parameters. They just say an SLM is a model you can run on your laptop or even your phone. And an LLM, well, that's everything else. Everything that you can't run locally.
So it's all about accessibility, not just size? And believe me, the paper is pretty blunt about what it thinks of the current way of doing things.
Yeah, it doesn't pull any punches. I'm just going to read this quote directly from the paper. It says, "The dominance of LLMs in the design of AI agents is both excessive and misaligned with the functional demands of most agentic use cases."
Whoa, I mean, that's a direct shot at the entire industry, right? They're basically saying everyone is using a sledgehammer to crack a nut.
Okay, but this leads to the big, obvious question. The one I'm sure everyone watching is thinking right now. Aren't the big models just smarter? I mean, how can a tiny model that runs on my laptop even begin to compete with a beast that needs a whole data center?
That is the million-dollar question. And you know what? The paper brought the receipts. The data's pretty shocking. We're seeing new SLMs punching way, way above their weight. I mean, look at this. You've got Microsoft's 5.3 going toe-to-toe with models 10 times its size. Salesforce has a model that's beating GPT-4o on tool use. And DeepSeek's model is outperforming Claude 3.5 Sonnet on reasoning. It's wild.
Okay, so this isn't just about being small. They're actually competing on the tasks that matter for agents. How are they doing that?
Well, it's not magic, it's just smart engineering. It's about being smarter, not just bigger. The paper boils it down to 3 main things. First, you've got new, way more efficient architectures. Second, instead of trying to be a jack of all trades, these small models are fine-tuned to be absolute experts at one specific thing. And third, they use some really clever tricks to boost their reasoning when they're actually running.
And that really gets to the core of the paper's argument. Think about what these agents actually do most of the time. It's not writing poetry or having deep philosophical chats. It's, repetitive, structured stuff. Formatting some data, calling an API, sorting an email. For that kind of work, you don't need a digital Shakespeare. You just need a super fast, super reliable specialist. And for that, an SLM isn't just good enough. It's actually the better tool for the job.
Okay, fine. Let's say I buy the performance argument. For now, let's say the small model can do the job. So what? Why should anyone bother to switch? What are the actual real-world advantages that would make someone want to do this?
I was hoping you'd ask that. Because the biggest argument, the real knockout punch, comes down to one number, this one. The paper says running one of these small 7 billion parameter models is 10 to 30 times cheaper than a typical LLM. Not 10% cheaper, 10 times. Wait, what? 10 to 30 times? That's not just a little better, that's a whole different ballgame. That's a massive drop in cost.
And it's not even just about the money. I mean, think about it. Because they're small, they're faster, so you get real-time responses. You can train one to do a new task in hours, not weeks. And the biggest one for me, you can run it on your own machine. That's a game changer for privacy.
Exactly. And when you stack up all those benefits, it points to a completely different way of building these AI systems.
The paper has this great analogy for it. They call it Lego-like composition. So imagine, instead of trying to build your entire creation out of one giant clunky block, that's the LLM, you get to build it with a whole box of small, specialized Lego bricks. Each one is an expert SLM that does one thing perfectly. And this slide shows that difference perfectly. On the left, you have the old way, the monolith. Every single task, no matter how simple, goes to that one giant expensive LLM. But on the right, you have this new heterogeneous system. It's like you have a whole team of fast, cheap specialist SLMs handling almost everything.
Right. They do all the grunt work. And then, only when something truly tricky comes up, something they haven't seen before, do they call in the big gun. The LLM becomes less of a general worker and more of a high-priced expert consultant you only call when you really need to.
Okay, so this all sounds good on paper, but here's where it gets really interesting. The researchers don't just stop at the theory. They actually give you a practical, step-by-step recipe for how a company could switch from their expensive LLM system to this new SLM-first approach.
And that's so important. It means this isn't just some pie-in-the-sky academic idea. This is a real-world engineering blueprint.
All right, let's just quickly run through the steps. So first, you just start collecting all the jobs you're currently sending to your big LLM. Then, step 2, you clean up that data. Step 3 is the clever bit. You analyze the data to find patterns. You might discover that, hey, a fifth of all our requests are just summarizing customer feedback.
Exactly. So once you've found that summarization task, you move to step 4. You pick the right little SLM for the job. Step 5. You train it on all that summarization data you collected until it becomes a world-class expert. And then you just deploy it and let it run, constantly feeding it new data to get even better.
And what's so cool about this is that it creates this amazing feedback loop. It's a virtuous cycle. The more people use your agent, the more data you get. The more data you get, the better you can train these little specialist models. So your system literally gets cheaper, faster, and smarter just by doing its job. It improves itself. And that really brings us full circle, back to that huge question. This paper really makes you stop and think about what smart AI even means. You know, we've all been obsessed with building this one, single, all-knowing digital genius.
But maybe that's not it. Maybe the smartest system isn't a single giant brain. Maybe it's a perfectly coordinated team of nimble, efficient specialists. This paper makes a really strong argument that the future of AI isn't a lone genius. It's a team. Something to think about. Thanks so much for joining us.